The Natural, 1984, starring Robert Redford. This is the last movie of my of the year of 1984, my retrospective. Full disclosure, I've got some sports movies that I like, but for the most part, I really don't enjoy sports movies. I have a particular disinterest with sports movies that try to elevate sports above themselves, that try to make them transcendent. I feel like this might be a little bit of a one size fits all critique, but which is a problem, to be honest. But I feel like they're trying to appeal to the person that loves that sport and wants to make more out of it than it really is. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure it's not really that way, but it feels that way. And The Natural definitely is trying to make the sport of baseball beyond what it is on the field. That said, I should say that even for someone who approaches it without a full interest, the movie is good. So if you just like good movies, you may actually like The Natural, because I really was not interested in seeing a baseball movie, and yet it did keep my interest. And it has a pretty good like core mystery going on. I don't want to give any of that away, but the very beginning, it makes you think it's going one direction, and it just takes you completely off guard and goes in another, and has you asking some questions about the central mystery of the story as it moves along. So it is a good movie. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I'll explain a little bit more about my approach. I'm trying to do less pausing and thinking through these things, but it's hard to do sometimes. Just to give you kind of what's going on with me, if you've ever seen the movie Dazed and Confused, the movie is kind of nonsensical. It's really just about a night in the life of teens in Texas in the 70s in high school. But there's a really interesting scene. It's the main character, and he's the quarterback of the football team, and that's a big deal in Texas. We all know that. And it's not a sports movie at all, but he's contemplating whether he wants to play anymore, because he's young and there's a lot of opportunity to meet girls, and he's in high school and wants to go out and explore his options. And there's a scene that's really good. He goes to they're graduating, the juniors are graduating, he'll be a senior the next year, and this old man wearing the high school, a jacket with a high school symbol on it, comes up to him and grabs his arm and says, "We're really going to need you next year, man. We're looking good. We're looking tough." And it's contrasting his life. Like he just like, okay, all right. But he has no interest in playing football. I love this scene because you could, I forget the director's name, but you could just see the real life in this. That it's almost like, this old man, his life is kind of through, and now he's interested in these high school sports, and this kid has his whole life ahead of him, and the last thing he's interested in is high school sports. It's really, really good stuff. And that's how I feel about sports movies. They almost feel childish to me a little bit. And I'm not saying I don't like sports movies. I like Rudy. I like Hoosiers. There's some good sports movies, and this should be counted among them. It is really good. But golf movies, and I'm not talking about Happy Gilmore. I'm talking about maybe Bagger Vance, or a couple of these golf movies are really trying to just elevate the sport above where it probably should be. Maybe Angels in the Outfield counts as one. I'm not sure. I've never seen it, so just the name alone. But anyway, I want to make a comment too about Robert Redford in this movie. I have said on many occasions, I don't know about you, for me, acting is not that big of a deal to me unless it's really bad. And the word that kept coming to mind with Robert Redford was placid. He delivers his lines in a very curt manner, and there's no cadence. And what I mean by that is there's no elevation in his voice or any kind of um, he's just kind of delivering his lines. If you watch a Harrison Ford movie, and I pick him because he was a star of this time period. Harrison Ford is a superb actor. You don't look at his face; he doesn't mug for the camera. What goes on in his eyes, what you see is what's happening behind the eyes. He's feeling these emotions. He would have made this movie so much better. There is a scene. I probably shouldn't imitate it, but imagine you have a lifetime goal, all right, and this is not a spoiler, okay, and you achieve that goal. Imagine what your reaction would be. You would, at the very least, the very very least, be like this: like, I did it. Finally, it's over. Something. Here's Robert Redford in a moment similar to that. All right. Like, almost like, yeah, he's a good looking guy. Harrison Ford was a good looking guy. Harrison Ford was in great shape, except he can act. Oh, it's his acting's terrible in this movie. I mean, it's really bad. And it's not what it is I think he's trying to be subtle, but rather than subtle, he just looks like a bump on a log, you know? Whereas Ford has a presence, a very strong presence in his movies. Yeah, you know, hindsight's 2020. Looking back on it at the time, Redford was a big star and would have drawn people in. But now, looking in, again, I'll say for the retrospective, I don't grade on a curve. I look at a movie as it is today through my eyes, and Redford's acting does not get it done at all. It's not even close. To give you a good example of this, and by the way, to some people, this is a big deal, okay? If the lead actor isn't good, they're not interested. And I'd say if that's you, stay away from this one. Because his acting is like a table reading. It really is. It's just like a table reading. When you watch actors practice the lines, they're trying to learn the lines, so they're just kind of getting them out there. That's Redford in this movie. There's just nothing. So maybe he just had no experience in theater. In theater, you really have to emote because you have to have people who are in the back be able to see what you're doing. And when the camera's right in your face, you don't have to do that as much. Or let's just face it, he's a good-looking guy and had a big name at the time. That said, if acting's your thing, you're not getting that in this movie. So, The Natural, 3 stars out of 5. I do recommend it. I do think it's a good movie. And if you like baseball or sports movies, you absolutely will like this movie. But and if you like mysteries, there's a central mystery to it I'm not going to say the conclusion to that mystery is satisfying. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. It's not satisfying at all. It's kind of like, really, that's it? But still, despite that, the movie is good. The Natural.